My friends, now that I've gotten into sawmilling with my homemade bandsaw mill, I thought it's time to learn how to sharpen those blades. I looked into buying a sharpener, and you're in the neighborhood of $1,000 or quite a bit more to get a good one. I had my own ideas about how to convert my chainsaw sharpener into a sawmill blade sharpener, and then started looking around on the internet, and I found a company that had already done that. And now I'm going to try to build my own version of a bandsaw blade sharpener. So stay tuned and we'll get to it right after this. The first thing I'm going to do is make an adapter plate to mount on my chainsaw sharpener, and I'm going to start with this brass ring and I'm going to face it off. Well, that almost did it. Got a little bit right there, so we'll go across there one more time. Well, that looks good enough for my purposes. I'm just going to knock the sharp corners off. Now I just need to turn this down and just make a little lip to turn down that will fit into the base of my chainsaw sharpener. Just needs a little bit, not very much. I need to turn it down to 3.160 thousandths of an inch. We're presently at 3.28, so we've got over 100 thousandths to go. I'll dial in about 30 thousandths at a time, so that'll be about 15 thousandths on one side or 30 thousandths for the total diameter. We're only about 28 thousandths away, so I'll dial in 10 more thousandths, and that ought to be very close. Well, I don't know how I misread it the last time, because we're not very close now. Something's wrong. Got quite a bit more to go. We got about 40 thousandths to go, so I'll dial in another 10 just to play it safe. And that'll be 20 on the total. Alright, there's the 3.18, and I'm trying to get to 3.16, so we got 20 thousandths more to go. If I dial in another 10, that'll do it, but I'm only going to dial in 9 just to play it safe. So that ought to leave us a couple thousandths big. Yep, we've got 5 thousandths to go according to that. Or 4 thousandths. Yep, about 4 thousandths. So I'm going to dial in just one more thousandth. That ought to be it pretty close. It says it's 2 thousandths off, which is about what it should be. So I'm just going to dial one more thousandth in there. I don't know if this will fit on here. It probably won't. It would be nice if I didn't have to remove that from the chuck. I can't quite get it to fit on there. So I'll just double check my measurements and see if we're on the 160, and if we are, I'm going to call that good. Well, it says, yep, it says it right on the money. So I'm going to go ahead and knock those corners down. I'm going to assume that's going to fit. We're going to take it out of there and test it. So there's what she looks like. We'll see if it fits. So let's just see if my little part fits down in there like a glove. Not any play at all, zero. Fits it perfectly. I mean, absolutely perfectly. That's exactly what I wanted. All right, now the only problem could be it might be too tall, and I don't know about that yet. I kind of think it's going to be okay at the height it is, but I'll have to do a little more thinking on that. I'm going to make a table for this now out of an old saw blade. It should work just fine. This is an old carbide tipped saw blade for cutting metal, and it is completely wore out. I don't mind sacrificing it. It'll have a better life as a bandsaw blade sharpener. So I'm going to cut these lines right here and make it into more of a square platform. Well, there's half of it. I got half to go. I'll do the other half off camera. Well, you can see I got them cut out there, and these two halves turned out to be exactly the same size, so I think we're doing a good thing here. We got it all symmetrical and all that. I don't really feel like I have to cut these ends off, but I'm going to go ahead and cut them off just to make it look better. Mainly I'm just after this piece of steel, and it's just a perfect size piece of steel for what I need to do. And the reason I wanted to use this piece of steel instead of just a plain old square piece of steel is it already had a good center hole in there that I can center off of and drill my bolt pattern and all kinds of things. So this will work out really good for me in the long run. Well, I got my piece all made. Turned out really nice. If it was just a hair thicker, it'd be okay with me, but it's thick enough, I think, to do what I need it to do. Well, this is more or less how it would look on the sharpener. There'll be a guide on here that the blade will go into, and then we can adjust the angle and everything on this, and we can adjust the length this way on the blade. I've got a special sharpening wheel on order that would work with a sawmill blade, and I think it's going to work really good. I really think it's going to be just fine. Well, you're not going to be able to see any of this very well, but I'll just tell you what I'm doing. I've got this little ring on my rotary table, and to the best of my ability, I got it centered. I used an indicator and tried to indicate it, but with these things in the way, it was very difficult to get it perfect. I think I'm pretty close, within a few thousandths. Now I have it set on 30 degrees right here on the money. Got the table locked down. I'm going to drill and tap 3 holes on this circle for a 1024 bolt. I've got a little spot drill there, or center drill, and we're going to drill a little hole first thing. Okay, we'll change out to the proper drill bit now and drill the hole.
You've heard a song about a horse or two. Well, here's one more, and I swear it's true. The finest horse you've ever seen. His name was...
Now I'm going to loosen the table up and rotate to 100 and 150, because I'm on 30 now and I want to go move it 120 degrees. So I'm going to move it around to the 150 mark. And I'll put the spot drill back in.
Phantom 614, a proud young stallion with head held high. His coat like satin under candlelight. His mane and tail, oh how they sheen. His name was Phantom 614.
Okay, we're at 150 plus 120. We got to go around to 270.
Up on the back of 614, the trainer said, son, he can't be rode.
They look pretty darn good. They're just inside the little rim where I wanted them to be, which, to be honest, that kind of worked out by accident, but it worked out. I'm glad they worked out on the inside of that rim. They didn't hit the rim. That it wouldn't have made much difference if it had, but it's just nice that they didn't. And I'm just going to deburr the holes here a little bit. I think that may have got it. I may have to get a little bigger bit to do that. I got a 1024 tap, and before I get all the comments, yeah, I could have started it in the drill press, but this is fine. This two flute tap, they really start easy and they cut really good.
Boy, or you'll be thrown. He said that horse is just plain mean. His name was Phantom 614. Without any fear, I climbed upon the back of the one they said was me. His name was Phantom 614. A one-man horse to me proved true.
That should take care of that. So once we get the same bolt hole pattern in this, we can just screw this right down to that. Then we can set the whole contraption over here, lock her down, and Bob's your uncle, as they say. I've got this centered up on this hole pretty good, pretty much just by eye. What you can't see though is there's another ring just inside here that I can see in this piece of steel that's centered on the hole, and that allows me to really eyeball closely how centered this is. And man, it's so close that it wouldn't matter if it was off at this point. I mean, it's really close. So I'm just going to hold it in place, and I'm going to tap these and mark the next holes.
Stare as we ride through a sight which few have ever seen. His name was Phantom 614.
Well, I got 3 little marks. They look pretty good. So I'm going to see if I can drill this now. Don't know how well this will work. I'm just going to try to drill them by hand. I've got a center drill in the drill.
His name was Phantom 614.
It looks like some pretty hard material, which I figured it would be. But I did get 3 little marks. I'm going to try to see if I can see through them. Put the light down here, see if I can get the holes to line up. Well, they all 3 appear to line up, so I guess we're good. We're gonna call that good for now. Okay, I got a drill that looks like it should be big enough. I'm hoping this will start. Well, it don't seem like it wants to drill too much. Well, put a drop of oil on it. I don't think that's going to help in this case. And I just hand sharpened it to see if it'll make a difference. And that answer is no. These are just little Harbor Freight drill bits, so I'm going to try a little better quality and see if it'll work. You can hear the whippoorwill outside the window. Well, he just stopped when I did, because I guess he heard me. Anyway, these are a little harder drill bit. These are, I think they're a drill hog or something like that. Now you can hear him. Let's see. I don't know if this will work. Yes, it is working, but barely. It's working. I'm going to get me a little backer board underneath this. Alright, I put another drop of oil on this, and I think we'll be able to go through. One hole down. Well, that's as good as it needs to be for now. Now let's hope it lines up. Well, they actually do look like they line up, so let's try this and see if it actually works. There's two. Now what did I do with the third screw? There it is. If the third one starts, we're in good shape. Very good. That doesn't happen every time, I can tell you that. So now let's get a little Allen wrench, tighten these up. I'm guessing that this is the size. Yep. Okay, looky there. Houston, we have success. Pretty happy with that. This little groove that I turned in there now should fit this just perfectly. Perfect. Fits it just like a glove. That's exactly what we need. It's late this evening, so I'm going to call this good for today, but tomorrow I'll put in what I need to hold the blade and move the blade into position and all that. It's the next day. I moved into the woodworking side of the shop so I could be more comfortable and do some layout. I'm needing a fence on this side. The one that I saw online that was made by Hudson has a curved fence, and that might be smart. But on the other hand, I don't think it's necessary. I think I can get by with a straight fence. Anyway, that's what I'm going to try to do. If I end up needing to make it curved, I will. What I want to do is have this face of this fence dissect the center of this hole, except that the blade thickness is 44 thousandths of an inch thick. So basically, I want to set this 22 thousandths of an inch that way. Of center, and then that way the center of the blade will be center of this hole, which should be center of the grinder. Simple but complicated, as I always say. This hole is exactly 1 inch. I measured it a moment ago, and it measures 0.999 thousandths of an inch, so basically it's a thousandth of an inch smaller than 1 inch according to my measurements. I measured it 2 different directions, and that's exactly how it measures every time. I've got to figure out how to lay this out, and I'm not exactly sure how to do that. My edges are more or less rough cut, and I did actually sand them on the sander to get them straight, but I don't necessarily know that it's perfectly square or anything. Let's just see how square it is. This is a fairly decent square here. Let's just see if this kind of shows up square or not. Yeah, it's not exactly square. It's off by 30 thousandths or so off that corner. See how it is off of this corner. It's even worse off of this corner. It's cocked. It's twisted like. So I can't really use that. I wonder how I could find the center line of this. Basically, I want the center line to more or less parallel these 2 bolt holes here. Maybe I could just do that and work off those bolt holes, even though they're not perfectly square either. In fact, let's see how far off they are. It's 3 and a little more than a quarter inch. 3 and a little more than a quarter. They're actually fairly straight to that side. 3 a little more than a quarter there. They're pretty straight. I'm just going to work off of that. So I'll draw like a line here. I'll try to measure somehow to the center. The line is almost on the edge of that hole, which it would be awesome if it was, but it's not. So it's kind of like paralleling the hole on both sides. Then maybe I could just kind of get the center of that and mark a center line. It's not going to be perfectly accurate, but it's going to be fairly close. See how close we are here. It's about the same. Unfortunately, both of them are just a hair over an inch, but that's okay. Guesstimate the center. It'll probably be close enough for what I want to do. And now I can at least draw a center line that should pretty much be in the center of that circle. That looks pretty darn center to me. And then basically I just need to be offset that way 22 thousandths to get dead center on the blade. Not exactly sure how to do that. I think I'm going to put an X on this and an X up here to indicate that's the orientation of the holes and things, just in case it matters, and I doubt it will, but you never know. This thing is so big and unwieldy, I think I'm going to go cut it off. There's a hole in the end of this, so I'm just going to cut off that and waste that end, and I'll cut it to the length of this, and I'll just use a tape measure and get a close enough length. It's 11¼ inches. So I'll go cut this off to 11¼ inches and I'll be back. While I was at it, I went ahead and cut 2 of them to the same length. What I'm doing is lining this up, and I'm basically doing it by eye because I don't know that there's any better way to do it when you're only talking 20 thousandths of an inch or 22 thousandths, something like that. I don't think there's much point in caring about it too much, but I'm just kind of guessing what I think 22 thousandths is, and I'm a pretty good guess because that's about where this shows up here. Yeah, it's just a guess, but I'm planning to lock that down with these clamps, or hopefully lock it down with these clamps. Looks pretty good. Then hopefully I can turn it over and mark these 2 holes. So I'll go get my little transfer punch to mark these 2 holes. Okay, got the transfer punches, and unfortunately this material's not thick enough for this to really help that much guide me, so I'm just going to try to eyeball it in the center. Alright, I drilled the 2 little holes in this. Alright, so now I got my little X's in the same orientation. Get the holes lined up there. Got these holes lined up. Whoops, except that I got it backwards. See if this will go down in there and screw in. Looks like it will. Okay, so now we have a fence that's not in the center. How come it's off of here now? I don't know how that got off. That doesn't make sense. Maybe there's enough play in these screw holes. That's weird. Yep, there is. Doggone it. I didn't know that would be the case. I thought they were going to fit tight enough. No, I can line it up, so I'll line it up here. Just a hair off of the center line. Just kind of look at it a little bit there, make sure it's really lined up. I think that's pretty good there. I think that's pretty center. So we'll tighten it back down. And now we do have a fence that goes right down the center of the table there, I think. I think we're in good shape there. Now this fence has to do more or less the same thing, except that it has to be tightenable. I'm not exactly sure how I want to do that yet, because the blade has to go through here, and it has to be something that can be released quickly, let the blade slide, tighten it back down. So this one's going to be more complicated at least by my estimation. So maybe I'll take this screw out for the moment, set this in there, and I'm going to clamp it in place also. And then I think I'm going to turn it over and mark, oops, I can't mark the hole on this one because it's a long way through there. I could probably do it with a very small transfer punch. Maybe I can still do it. I'll just have to find a really tiny one that'll go all the way through. That one's fine, but it's a little too tiny. Try this one. It's better. That might be the one. See if this one will go. That one won't go. So, all right. So I can put this through all the way and mark the aluminum. So that did mark the aluminum just fine. So I'm going to drill that hole. Now that hole is probably going to end up being a slot, but I'm going to go ahead and drill it for now. I went ahead and drilled this hole. The size of these are a little bit bigger than the head of these screws. And the reason I did that is because I know this is going to end up having to be a slot. It's going to have to slide somehow. At least I think that's how it's going to have to work. But for now, I just wanted to see if it would fit on there. And wouldn't you know, it's not fitting tight. I wonder how that happened. Here's a blade, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get this in there. But this might be a good test right here for a straight versus curved. I think straight's going to be fine, actually. It actually fits in there pretty good. That's not terrible. In fact, it's not too bad. But I do need to make a slot here so this can slide in and out. So I think I'm going to go to the milling machine and cut this slot. I'm only going to go a few thousandths on either side though, because it doesn't need to slide very far. Maybe 20, 30 thousandths on each side. All right, my friends, I already know that that's a drill chuck. I'm not dumb. And I know that that's not how you're supposed to mill. I already know that. But it was in there, it was quick and dirty. I only have to take off a few thousandths each direction. I think it'll be fine. If it isn't fine, well, I'll have learned my lesson and I'll do it better the next time. I think that will suffice for my purposes. At least I think it will. Don't know that for sure. Won't know till we get further along. Might be that I'll be making this whole piece again. I did cut my slot. That's really all I needed. Now we'll go back and see how it all fits together. I don't know where I'm going from here, but this part seems to be okay. It's got enough play in there to let the blade get in. It might be that I'll have to cut smaller slots and put some screws in here to retain this so it doesn't fall out. Got to think about all that, and I'm really not sure what my next step's going to be. I just know we're getting close, and I'm kind of letting it design itself. That's kind of the way I do a lot of my designs. I just start off with hopefully what I think is a solid plan and just refine it from there. Well, my friends, this is working out pretty well. This blade is heavy. I've got the blade clamped in here and it's really heavy back that way, and it's wanting to tilt this out of the holder and all that. First of all, I am going to have to put some kind of retaining on here and some slots so this can slide in and out and retain this. But one of the things I need to do pretty soon is get this locked down to the rest of the machine. The parts that come standard, you know, this is the part for sharpening the chainsaw. It's got this knob and it locks underneath here. So I need to find some way to lock this piece down just like this locks. Down the inside of this a little bit. I'm not going to go too deep. I need a lip want to turn it down as much as I think I can get away with without weakening this wall. So I want to go some more yet. It's probably enough, but I think I just want to go some more. I think that's deep enough. In fact, I know it is. So I'm going to stop there, and that still gives me plenty of wall thickness there on the screw holes. So what that looks like is there's a lip there. Now what I'm going to do is set a disc down in there where it sits on that lip, put a screw hole through it, and then I can tighten it up from the bottom. So I'm going to make a steel disc now that fits this area. I made a round disc, and now I've got to drill a hole in it so I can thread this, and this is what's going to lock the whole thing together. Well, it's been a few days since I worked on this. I'm still waiting on that fancy sharpening wheel to come in, but I don't have that yet, but I want to go ahead and make some progress on this. Off camera, drilled these two holes. Originally, I was going to make this a slip fit where it would slide like this and then I could lock it tight on the blade. But I noticed that almost all of them just have a slip fit here where the blade slides through and just slides. It doesn't ever really lock. So I'm going to try that method first. I can always go to my other method if I need to. But so what I was trying to do was come up with a way to make this you know, a good slip fit. I don't want to get it too tight and I don't want to get it too loose. What I'll do is I'll put the blade in here and I'll put some tape on the blade to give it a little bit of space. Then I'll clamp this tight and fix it in place. Then when you take the tape off, it should slide through, I hope. I'm going to see how thick this tape is first before I commit to that. So I'm going to use my calipers and just see how thick this tape is. According to this, it's about 3.5 thousandths. I'm not sure that's enough of a slip fit. Might be fine. I'm wondering if 2 of them are too much. But I guess I'm going to start with 2 of them anyway. I'm going to put 2 layers of tape on the blade and then stick the blade in here and clamp it in place. Just find a clean spot on the blade here. This looks like a good clean spot. Seem to be on real smooth and clean. I think 2 thicknesses of tape should probably suffice. Okay, so that's got that locked down pretty good. I think I'll get a couple more of those little clamps and clamp this down too, just to keep everything good and square and tight. Okay, I have got this all clamped up real nice. 2 thicknesses of tape, which should give it about 6 thousandths clearance or maybe 7 thousandths clearance. I've got the 2 holes drilled already, and they're drilled with a 5/32 drill bit. And so now I'm going to use a 5/32 transfer punch and try to transfer these marks. Okay, I think I've got the marks there, and now I'm going to find the drill that's supposed to work with an 832 thread, and I'll find that drill bit and we'll drill these holes. Just used the center drill there just to get myself a good mark so that my drill bit won't wander. This blade's very hard and it's not drilling on this one, of course. The first one probably dulled the bit enough. I'll try to go sharpen this by hand, but these little tiny bits are very hard to sharpen. It's work hardened, that piece, I guess, and it's just not going to cut now. Well, off camera I took the center drill and just poked that hole through. I'm going to try threading it. We'll see what happens. I got my 832 tap. This saw blade steel is so hard. You know, that's what I made this out of. Obviously it was a circular saw blade. I'll try the good hole first and see if I'm going to have any success. It really doesn't feel like it wants to cut at all.
From where I stand, I can see all the lights of the city.
Oh, let me see if I can find a different tap. You know, I found a little 2-flute tap made in the USA. Hopefully this one will do something. I'm not holding my breath on this. I think this saw blade is really hard.
For one man to love one woman so much it's a pity. From where I stand I can see the cantina she goes to.
I think that one worked. Thank goodness. Now will it work on this hole that I kind of boogered up? That's the question.
Where she's not supposed to, but goes anyway. From where I stand I can hear the...
That hole there is going to be a problem. Off camera here I've taken this little tiny needle file and I rounded the hole out. It looks better. I'd say there's an outside chance maybe. Feels like it's biting now maybe. Yep, I think it is.
Music and laughter. Carmilla tells me that's what her young heart is after. I see it.
This material is so thin it's not going to cut very many threads in it anyway. But that's why I chose the very fine 832. I think it'll be fine. I think it'll work. If it doesn't work, we'll have to come up with some nuts or something to make it work better. But I think it's going to work. Okay, I've got it caught back up to where we were before. I'll set this on here and we'll try our new 832 cap screws here. Feels like it's snugging up real nice. So there looks like there's a good gap there. Is it a gap that'll work with this blade? Let's try it. Now this time I'm going to put it on there where there is no tape and see if it goes through there. It does, but quite honestly it's a little tight. But then again, that could just be because it's caught on stuff. Well, I'm glad I at least gave it 2 tapes thicknesses. I mean, it works. Maybe with a little lubrication and stuff, it'll work better. Well, there I got into the tape there. I wasn't watching. I think it'll work. I think it'll work. It's got a little bit of resistance, but I don't want it flopping in there. I think that's actually going to work. I'm okay with that. Well, the next thing I need to build on this now is a tooth advancement. I need to find a way and a stop. So in other words, you're pushing it back and it stops at a certain place. Now it's gotten tight again. I don't know why exactly. I'll have to think about that a little bit. I might have to loosen these up and tighten them back down. Maybe that would give it enough play. I know this side's got a little bit of give in it, so I'll just loosen up this side and see if that's enough play. Yeah, that feels better. Anyway, I think it's going to be fine. I don't think there's enough play there to care about. And I can always adjust that some more down the road. But right now I need to try to figure out a way to make a blade advancement. I mean, you can do it manually, but I don't really want to do it manually. I want to be able to do it precisely. As carefully as I can, I have measured this thing to be square to the body, so that's as square as I can figure out to make it. And now there's a 0 mark down here, and I'm going to put a little scratch right at that 0 mark so that I know how to 0 it every time. That looks pretty good. Got a little scratch there. I'll make that scratch better later, but now at least I know where it goes. My friends, the good news is the CBN wheel for my grinder came in. The bad news is it doesn't fit. I mean, I think it's the right size for the shaft, but it just doesn't fit. I mean, it will work here, but the shaft, there's 2 problems. First of all, the shaft is too short, so I'm gonna have to extend it. And secondly, it needs a bushing to hold out because it doesn't go to the stop on the shaft. There is a stop back here, but I'm gonna need a bushing from that stop out to this. Yeah, it's just not good. And then I'm gonna have to extend it out because only about I'm going to say an 1/8 of an inch, or maybe a millimeter actually. Only about a millimeter and a half is on the shaft. So 40, 50 thousandths, something like that. It's not good. I don't ever seem to catch a break on these kinds of things. And I'm not really sure this guard can even be here. It really is going to be very close on the guard. Very frustrating. I did not anticipate that problem. The one company that makes these, they sell the whole unit, so I just assumed that it was just a standard chainsaw unit, but obviously not. Actually, I don't even think this fits the shaft just right. So I'm going to have to do some thinking now of what to do, if I can modify this or make an extension for this, or if I should just send this back and forget it. And so my friends, because of the non-fitting issues, I'm going to start by making a bushing looking something like this, and we will see where we go from there, because I'm not even sure.
Friendly, I see you there with the man. Carmilla is lying a seat from where I stand. The music plays on as I watch their tender embraces. From where I stand I can see her dress as it's swaying. It seems to be waving goodbye to me. From where I stand I can hear the music and laughter. Carmilla tells me that's what her young heart is after. I see her differently, I see her there with a man.
My friends, it's the next day, and I have completely decided the adapter idea that I was going for was just never going to work. So I decided to bite the bullet, and knowing I would not be able to return this CBN wheel, I decided to just bore it out to fit the regular adapter on the chainsaw sharpener already. I've done some careful measurements, and I do think it will work if I bore this out. Otherwise, of course, I wouldn't have bored it. But I'm getting close to the diameter. I need to go out to an 875 thousandths. Let me see where we're at now. Nearly 800 thousandths now. Well, actually, we really are right at 800 thousandths. I need to go about another 70 thousandths, and I'm taking about 20 thousandths per time. So I'm actually dialing in 10 thousandths, and that takes 20 thousandths off the diameter.
Carmilla is lying asleep from where I stand. Carmilla is lying, I see it from where I stand.
Alright, I'm going to use a bore gauge to see where we're at, try to be a little more accurate. We're at 828 thousandths according to this. I'm not using a micrometer at the moment. I may go to a micrometer, but this is probably going to be accurate enough for my purposes. 828, so we've got a ways to go yet.
One of the best things about bluegrass music is that we all get together every now and again and have a jam session. Just the other night at my house, my wife was at the front door and she was greeting him with hugs. And in the hall I could hear a banjo. I think he was picking out some scruggs. In the corner was a dobro and he was polishing his bar. And through the front door window I could see a tiny car. And in that little foreign car was a big old doghouse bass, which only goes...
That's it, I think. I think I did it. There's no play in that at all. I mean, zero. And it just, that's the way I wanted it to fit. That's about as good as it can be done. I'm hoping it'll fit on the other side. I hope there's no difference on the back side. There ain't no returning this now. I just hope it works. Trying to get the burrs off of it there. I'm going to clean this up a little bit and then we'll see how it fits. Well, it seems to fit on the other side as well. I hope I had the camera on properly when I was doing this. Although now it's a little tough to get it back out of there. It came out. But boy, it fits it snug. Now let's go see if it'll fit on the machine. Well, my friends, I'm proud to report that it actually does fit now. The exception is that it does rub the guard here a little bit, so it's a little, I mean, I can turn it, but it's pretty hard to turn because it's rubbing the guard pretty hard. I didn't want to modify the sharpener, but I don't think grinding a little bit away from this guard on the inside is what I call modifying it too much. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off and see if I can't take my Dremel tool to this area up here and give myself a little bit of clearance for this CBN wheel. Other than that, it fits pretty well. In fact, it might fit too well. It's tight. It's hard to get it off of there. There it is. It came off. It fits it really snug, which is what I was after, so that part's okay. I've got my little Dremel here, and I'm going to try grinding some of this out just a little bit.
To prove we only need a little space, there's tuning keys and peg heads in every size and shape with catgut on the fiddle and nylon on the bass. A mandolin against the wall tuning up to get it right and the guitar player's strumming, I think.
Well, I kind of doubt that'll be enough, but let's see where we're at before we go any further. That might be enough. I'm amazed.
He's set to pick all night. There's food out on the table, cold cuts, chips, and ham. Y'all pull your chairs up close, because we're going to have a bluegrass jam.
It just barely clears, and I mean like just barely clears. But just barely is good enough. Doesn't rub. Seems like it's running really smooth. This wheel's so much heavier than the other wheel, I'm a little bit leery of that. Just the weight of the wheel. Here we go. Oh, perfect. All right. Oh, wow. I'm so excited. That actually did work. Wow. Of course, it's going to take forever for it to stop spinning because it's a really heavy wheel. I am very excited. Like I said, it's going to take literally forever for that to stop spinning. It's a very heavy wheel. That wheel is probably 8 to 10 times heavier than the normal wheel that's on there. I'll slow it down with my finger. Still spinning. There we go. We got her. There we got it stopped. Well, I'm pretty happy with the way it's all hooking up right now. There's only one thing that bothers me a little bit, and that this disc is really only sitting on a very small amount of this insert in there, and it leaves a big void here, almost, well, a little more than a 1/4 inch in there, about so deep. And you know, I want to get rid of that. So what I want to do is I'm going to make me a spacer to fill this in with a hole in it, and then that way when I draw this up, that little spacer will just help keep it stable, I think. I mean, it's fine the way it is. It'd probably never be a problem, but I just will feel better if I've got that hole filled up so that the bolt is drawing down against something solid. So I'm going to make that little filler piece there out of a piece of aluminum. I've already faced it off, and now I'll turn it down to the proper diameter. So my goal is to turn this down to 875 first.
Lately the signs upon the face match the signs on the road I take. Slow down, don't turn left, dead end ahead. The caution light is lit as we head for the last.
I think that's it. A little bit snug, but I'd rather have it just a little bit snug, I think. Okay, so let's spot the hole first.
But I wonder what I'd find if I could drive through your mind.
I wonder what I'd find if I could drive through your mind. Would the road...
Well, obviously that bit has a problem. I don't know what the problem is, but it's got a major problem. Looks like it might have been broke and rounded off, and I didn't fix it, I guess. Actually, I'm going to plead innocent on that. I think that's the way that bit came from the factory. It was not looking good. These are cheap bits from Harbor Freight. Every once in a while you'll get one like that. At least that's been my experience. I just ground it by hand, and I think it'll work now. World of difference. Okay, that worked out really, really nice. I'm going to bevel off the end of this. That feels and looks really good. Now we just need to part it off. You know, I've checked the depth on the other thing, and I've already marked it here, so I'm just going to move this over. Well, actually, I'm going to have to move in a little bit more because it's not going to work otherwise. Now that I've got it in there where I can measure it better, I'm going to check it before I start cutting on this part. That looks real good to me. In fact, it looks great.
Your love for me be saved. A highway or gravel road, either way it's the same old load. But I wonder what I'd find if I could drive through.
There we go. One nice little bushing, and it's very hot. I think I'm just going to take this over to the drill press and deburr it. Just take the drill and just touch the top there till that burr comes off. We got our little spacer made. Bushing, whatever you want to call this thing. And it looks like it fits in there just like a glove. And now we'll see how it works with this on there. If it sticks in this CBN wheel, I don't have a problem with that. Like, in other words, if it doesn't come back out, as long as it's centered and it doesn't cause the wheel to vibrate, I'm perfectly fine with that. In fact, I think it's a good thing. There, it's in there nice and tight. The wheel doesn't rub. Let's turn it on and see if it's still okay. There's almost no vibration at all, so I'm real happy with that. There's like almost no vibration. That was simple. Yeah, right, that was simple. I think you can see now that I've got the blade on here, and this comes down and it fits the profile just perfectly. Now I just need to make some kind of a mechanism to advance the blade. That's what I left this big round tombstone thing here for, was I thought maybe I could put some kind of a lever off of this and push the blade forward to the appropriate spot. I've seen lots of them made where they're automatic feed, and I'd like to get there eventually, but you know, I always think, you know, crawl before you walk. I mean, right now I could physically pull this through and just do each tooth. It'd take a little while. In fact, it'd take quite a while because there's a lot of teeth on this. Got to think about the whole process yet, about how I want to do that. But at least we're in the ballpark. We definitely have got it working where it's fitting down in the gullet and the tooth and everything, and it fits it really well. Well, my friends, I've made a little more progress off camera. I went ahead and I made two rollers, one there and one there, out of kind of like a nylon plastic. Basically, it's more like that cutting board plastic. It's real slick plastic. Give you a close-up of the rollers. So basically, that's what it is. It's just a way to keep the blade up and without too much friction on the blade, so that when the blade is moving through the machine, just will roll easier. And you keep it at the same height that way too. I am presently working on the blade advancement. I brought it in here because I needed the area to work on the blade advancement. You know, the blade needs to be supported and all that. I had a little boo-boo working on this. I had a piece of rough steel and I was grinding all the rough cut edges off of it where it had been cut with a torch and all that. Well, it caught that piece of steel, and I've never had this happen before in all the years I've been using a grinder, and you got to realize I've been using a grinder since I was about 10, something like that. Using it a lot, too. It's not like it's my first rodeo. Probably used a grinder as much as anybody on the planet, other than somebody that does it all day long every day for their job, you know. But you can see the two Band-Aids there. It jerked the piece of steel down into the grinder and jerked my fingers into it. I don't know how I did it really, I swear I don't. And it ground through both fingernails and part of the finger too. Not too bad on the finger too much, but it did grind all the way through both fingernails. Oh, yeah. All right, I'm giving you free rein. Go ahead and make your comments. I've been there, done that so many times. Yeah, I think that's probably why I got hurt. I was probably taking it for granted. You know how that is when you get used to doing something. It makes me respect it that much more now. I got by lucky, I think. It's kind of bloody. It really is. You can see the blood off of the Band-Aids there. It was yeah, it was pretty good. It ground through them pretty good, really. But they'll be okay. It's not like it's serious enough to go to the hospital. It's just basically ground through the fingernail. That's pretty much all it did. Anyway, I'm making this bar. This is the piece of steel that used to be rough, and it was much bigger. And I cut this out to make a bar or a lever. And I'm going to put it on this side over here and work it to advance the blade. I'll show you a close-up of what I'm trying to do here. So this little tombstone I've left here, I left it plenty big. I may be cutting this down, but right now I thought it'd make sense to leave it large because I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this. But my idea now is to put this lever here, like so, and pivot it on this tombstone and move it forward like this, and then I'll have another piece of metal coming off of this that'll catch the tooth and push the tooth forward. I'll be able to adjust it maybe with a bolt through here or something so it can only go so far or something. I'm not sure how I'll do that on the length yet, but you know, I'm really not sure I'm going to do any of it. I'm just kind of playing it by ear, as you can tell. I'm going to try to anchor this down fairly low because I think that'll give me more leverage. And I'm going to try to keep the push part of this you know, reasonably low also, so I may have to cut some of the top of this off. I think that's going to work anyway, the idea will. Now this is all going to be manual feed for now. I mean, it's not like I couldn't potentially motorize it later, but for now, I'm like I said, I always crawl before I walk. This will give me an idea of the mechanical advantage of it and all that too, and whether or not it's feasible to even mechanize what I've got here. I think I'm going to want it right about there. Whenever you need to deburr a hole, you know, and you don't have a deburring tool, you can generally take just a larger drill bit and just hand spin it on the back side of the hole, or the side that's got the burr, and cut it off of there, especially if the bit's sharp. And that did it. It made a nice smooth area there. That's pretty good right there. It's just hardly any play in it, and moves freely. That looks pretty good. I'll probably end up cutting this screw off because it's pretty long. Yeah, I'm probably going to go ahead and get this all cut off here too. Probably much smaller. Probably might just do it as a long angle here and then around this. Yeah, I want the long angle will just give me more support, but I want this down and all this junk out of my way, I think. So what I'll probably do is just draw me a line, not much higher. Go from this corner down here to just a little bit above the screw. Something like that. That little scribe there makes a nice scratch mark. I'll take this off, go into my little bandsaw, saw this off and round this corner over here. Okay, well, I've got this cut down. I've got the bar back on there temporarily. It's just stuck through the hole. Now I was thinking of attaching a piece of angle like this. And the reason I want to use angle, number one, it's stiff, but it makes it really strong. And this is fairly thick aluminum angle. And if I attach that on here, I think I can get plenty of purchase, and that angle will also catch the tooth without worrying about the alignment. I really think that's probably the best option to go with. I'm trying to decide how far down here to do this. I'm just going to kind of mark it by eye here where I think I need to put it. So I guess the things to think about are that this angle clears the next tooth when it goes down in the gullet. With all that in mind, this looks like a good spot to drill it right about there. Then I'll just drill another hole in this also. I'll just go ahead and drill those holes again off camera and come back and show you how it fits up. Well, I've got some washers here that should work. Got the little screw to go in here. Unfortunately, I don't have another one of those locking nuts like that one is, so I'm going to double nut this one. But look at there, it's going to work. That's going to work great, and it's good leverage. Good leverage. It works great. I'm real happy with that. Now I just got to get the right nuts and washers and things. Okay, well, I've still got a few things to do yet. Number one, I've got to find a way to stop the advancement of the tooth so that it gets in the right spot. Otherwise, I pass up the optimal spot. Plus, I need a way that it'll be real consistent. And I need to be able to adjust that. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet. See, I keep going past it without any stop. It's hard to stop at the right spot. So but I think I am going to find a way to put a spring on here to here maybe. I thought about using the spring contact point right there, and that would sort of kind of work. It also comes with other problems, like trying to keep these nuts tight and things like that, and this spring would be rubbing. So I've just figured I'll just make a new hole. It's easy enough to do. Get this out of the way then, and then that way it's not part of the equation. I really think this is the better way to go, so that's what I did. I'm just judging where I want the next hole for the screw, and this will just make it a little bit of tension on it. Yeah, I probably need to make that stop fairly easily adjustable. And so putting it on the other side might not be the best option. Yeah, I got to think it through and see, and maybe I've already screwed up by putting this spring here. That may be my first problem. Well, my friends, a whole lot of tinkering later, and I did it all off camera, of course, because I just knew that it would just be a lot of tinkering and back and forth. But I think I found a good stop here. It took a little while. I had to allow for my screw that I put in for the spring. I had to find a way to stop this thing from going forward. So it's a crazy shaped part. Yeah, it's one of those parts that you sneak up on. It started out just being a piece of angle, and I just kept taking away stuff until I got it to work. So I'll have to put a slot in this and a screw into this part, and then I can loosen that screw and slide this forwards or backwards to adjust the stop. Should be fairly straightforward. So like if I'm pretending like this is it, then I would just go like this, and when it hits there, it stops. You know, and go there and it would stop. That's, you know, and that should be pretty close. Actually, that is very close. That's really all there is to it. Well, I would love to tell you that that was easy. Anything but that. I'm seriously telling you, I had to go through so many iterations to get that the way I wanted it. But I think I'm there. Right there's a stop. And that's not quite adjusted right. It needs to go that way a hair. So we just push it up there a little bit. Not quite there yet. That looks like that's pretty close. That might be cutting off a little bit too much, so I'm going to try to adjust it just a hair more, especially the first time I go through this. There's a little bit more. That's just about perfect right there. I can adjust the depth here. That's looking pretty good. I'm almost ready to try it out, I think. Oh, I remember too that I turned this table a little bit by accident, so I want to get that straightened out. So I got to do a few more little fine adjustments, and then once I get that ready, we'll see if this thing works. Well, I think I've got everything set appropriately. I've got the proper angle on the thing. Everything seems to be right. I got the table squared up. I don't know, ain't nothing to it except to do it, so let's see how it works. Okay, so here we go. Lower it down just a little bit. That's just about cutting the whole gullet, not quite yet. That looks good. That's it right there. That's the minimal cut. All right, let's go to the next one. I put a piece of tape so I know where I got to end up. Well, I'm noticing that it's lifting the thing up a little bit. Why is what I want to know. Why would it lift it? Doggone it anyway. I'll just have to keep my finger on it for now. Yeah, it's working, but I'm not totally happy with it yet. Yeah, it's kind of lifting it up. It's a little loose in the piece in the metal. I didn't think that would be a problem. I thought it would be too tight in there, if anything. Well, it's working pretty good overall though.
Each day on the interstate, as I'm pulling a load of freight, I think of you with each passing sign I see.
Okay, that one didn't work because I think the weld must be right there. Let me line this back up and try the next one, see if it works. Doesn't quite work either. Well, something's happened. I think it was just a weld problem. Yep, it was. I see the weld now.
The road ahead looks rough, and the travel will sure be tough. But I wonder what I'd find if I could drive through your mind.
I wonder what I'd find if I could drive through your mind. Would the road be rough or paved? Should your love for me be saved? A highway, gravel road, either way it's the same old load. But I wonder what I'd find if I could drive through your mind.
That's it right there. Well, my friends, for the first time ever sharpening a bandsaw blade, that went pretty darn smooth. The only place it was a problem was where the blade was welded together, and there was a few teeth there that caused a problem, but I could manually line those up and do it. So my thought is, in the future, when I do this, I'll start at the weld, just that side of the weld, push the weld to this side, and then the weld will be the very last thing I do, and I'll do that manually. Otherwise, it would work very well, and probably should be able to automate this. It didn't take very long. I would say it probably took me 10 to 15 minutes in reality, so it wasn't too bad.